All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving into an absolutely fascinating chemical detective story. We're going to walk through the complete experimental journey of measuring catalase activity in biological samples exactly as presented by Dr. Chem. Seriously, it's a true masterclass in analytical chemistry. To make sense of all this, we've got a quick roadmap. Today we'll cover 1. The enzyme keeping us alive. 2. Enzyme kinetics explained. 3. The measurement problem. 4. Modern solutions and assays. And finally, 5. Why measuring catalase matters.
Okay, section 1. The enzyme keeping us alive. Let's actually kick this off with a really relatable, everyday phenomenon that perfectly shows our subject in action.
Right? Why does hydrogen peroxide bubble like crazy when you pour it on a scrape? You know the drill. You pour it on and it instantly fizzes up. But that is not just some random chemical fizz happening on your skin. That is literally a high-speed biological rescue mission playing out right in front of your eyes.
See, our bodies naturally turn out toxic hydrogen peroxide just as a standard metabolic byproduct. Basically, during normal cellular reactions, some oxygen gets reduced into this toxin. Without a rapid cleanup crew, this stuff would just build up and cause severe oxidative damage to our sensitive biological components. Enter catalase. It's this ubiquitous antioxidant enzyme that jumps in and instantly disarms the threat, breaking it down into totally harmless water and oxygen gas. And taking a look at the 3D structure of this absolute unit of a protein, you can see it's a massive tetramer. It's made of 4 large subunits. If you look closely at the visualization, you can really see the intricacy here. Each subunit packs over 500 amino acids and features a prosthetic group, a heme, with an iron atom sitting right in the center, kind of like the hemoglobin in our blood. This incredible architectural setup is exactly what makes it one of the most wildly efficient enzymes we have ever discovered.
Moving to section 2, enzyme kinetics explained. To really wrap our heads around how fast this massive protein works, we kind of need to zoom down to the mathematical level of enzyme kinetics. We're talking classic Michaelis-Menten kinetics here. It's a beautifully efficient cycle. First, the enzyme grabs the hydrogen peroxide, the substrate. It forms a quick intermediate complex, literally rips the molecule apart, and kicks out the products, water and oxygen. The crazy part? The enzyme doesn't change at all. It just resets, instantly ready to grab the next molecule.
Notice in this schematic how it's basically a lock-and-key mechanism. The substrate clicks into the enzyme, that intermediate complex forms, and bam, fractions of a second later, it splits into the final products. It's this hyperspeed repetitive cycle that protects our biological tissues from constantly suffering from oxidative stress. So, if we are setting up a complete chemistry experiment to study this, we have to figure out a way to track it. By tracking either the disappearance of the hydrogen peroxide or the generation of the oxygen gas, scientists can calculate the precise rate constant of this life-saving reaction. But that brings us to section 3, the measurement problem. And here is the crucial catch. How on earth do you actually measure something that happens in the blink of an eye and literally covers itself in a cloud of bubbles? This is where the mechanics of the experiment get incredibly challenging. As Dr. Chem outlines in this experiment, early physical chemistry relied heavily on gasometric methods. Think of this classic apparatus from an old MIT laboratory protocol. Because the reaction produces oxygen gas, they would use a pressure sensor attached to a sealed glass tube completely submerged in a constant temperature water bath. As the enzyme went to work, a computer would log the pressure spikes as oxygen gas built up inside the tube. But measuring pressure has some massive limits, especially for high-throughput biological samples. So scientists tried classical UV spectrometry, trying to just measure the substrate directly at 240 nanometers. Honestly, it was highly flawed for biological fluids. Why? Because biological proteins and DNA also absorb UV light, completely skewing your data. Plus, those oxygen bubbles totally threw off the optical readings by scattering the light. Add in the fact that this happens in milliseconds, and you've got a massive headache for any analytical chemist trying to get clean data. Which takes us to section 4, modern solutions and assays. Faced with this wall of measurement issues, analytical chemists had to engineer some truly ingenious solutions to perfect the catalase activity assay. Looking at this measurement evolution, we've transitioned from those clunky physical pressure tubes to super imperfect UV light readings and finally arrived at brilliant chemical stop baths and high-throughput microvolume assays. The real game changer here was the invention of discontinuous or freeze-frame chemistry. Researchers figured out that if you hit the reaction with a highly acidic reagent, like sulfuric acid mixed with titanium tetrachloride or ammonium metavanadate, it instantly denatures the catalase enzyme. Boom. It effectively stops the reaction at an exact, measurable millisecond, halting the enzyme right in its tracks.
Once the reaction is frozen, the magic really happens. That leftover, unreacted hydrogen peroxide binds to these transition metals and forms a complex that turns a highly visible color. With titanium, it turns this bright yellow per-titanic acid red at 405 nanometers. With vanadium, it forms a red-orange complex peaking at 452 nanometers. This is huge because it allows scientists to completely bypass the invisible UV spectrum and move into visible light, totally ignoring the UV protein interference that ruined those earlier experiments.
These modern stop-bath assays are just fantastic. Because they measure in the visible light spectrum and kill the bubbling immediately, they are incredibly accurate and really inexpensive to run. But most importantly, they handle high-protein biological samples, like serum, bacterial extracts, or tissue homogenates, flawlessly. They finally solved the exact problems that earlier researchers were banging their heads against.
So that brings us to Section 5, Why Measuring Catalase Matters. We've solved the intricate chemistry problem. We can accurately measure life's fastest enzyme. But what is the actual biological payoff of all this? Why do we care so much about getting this specific measurement right?
Well, as Dr. Chem points out, because these new colorimetric methods don't suffer from biological interference, we can scale things way, way down. We don't need giant test tubes anymore. We can use microvolumes. Researchers are now running these assays using nanodrops or 96-well microplates, analyzing just tiny fraction of a milliliter samples.
This high-throughput capability is a massive deal. It means researchers can now rapidly screen dozens, even up to 96 microscopic samples all at once. They can check the oxidative stress levels in tiny organisms, like Drosophila fruit flies or microscopic nematodes, without needing massive amounts of tissue. We can literally measure the exact efficiency of the catalase enzyme in different parts of a tiny organism's body to see exactly how it handles environmental stress.
So here's what you should take away from this. Oxidative stress is the primary driver of cellular aging, and it's heavily implicated in severe neurodegenerative disorders. Understanding exactly how our cells handle toxic stress at the absolute micro level is step one in combating it. By perfecting this single chemical measurement, have scientists just handed us the precise tools we need to conquer aging itself? It definitely leaves us with some thrilling possibilities for the future of human health.